As usual, I was wondering what I was going to talk about tonight. It's quite interesting being a monk. You've got all these people coming and I haven't got a clue what I'm going to say. But as it happens, I just returned from Singapore yesterday afternoon and I brought back something from Singapore, which was a bit of food poisoning. So I was very sick last night. And even now, I've got a very sore stomach. And I just remembered when I was meditating that someone asked me a long time ago, or a few days ago actually, not that long, that why can't we, I say, a Buddhist attitude or a meditator's attitude for dealing with pain? Not just physical pain, but sometimes coping with the painful experiences of life. And I think that since that is very in the front of my mind, or rather just below my mind around here somewhere, it might be a very good thing to talk about tonight. And, of course, it's not a negative thing to talk about because each one of us, no matter who we are, no matter how healthy we think we are, no matter what lifestyle we follow, there will always be times when we get sick or we experience pain, or sometimes even other disappointments in life. And sometimes the people look at a monk and think, well, you're a meditator, you live a stress-free lifestyle, you shouldn't get sick. And I always remember once when I felt very sick once. I forget what it was, some sort of bug or something. And I went to see my local doctor. And at that time, I was teaching meditation in the local prison. And as I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room, sort of feeling really, really sick and terrible, and then this prison officer came in, and he saw me. He recognized me straight away. Ajahn Brahm, what are you doing in here? As if like monks aren't supposed to get sick. We're all supposed to eat brown rice and exercise every day and meditate, and so we're not supposed to get sick and die. So I felt actually very guilty when he said that, as if I'd done something terribly wrong for being sick. But of course, there is nothing wrong with being sick. Each one of us has to endure that from time to time. But one of the wonderful things about being a monk, you have all these amazing techniques and attitudes to deal with the pain of the body and the difficulties of life. And what that does, it doesn't make you more negative or more depressed when you start talking about pain, but it also shows you how to overcome it, transcend it, and get beyond it. So you can still have a good time, even though you feel like your stomach's being kicked by a mule. But nevertheless, when a person has pain, we can usually see just many... Well, actually, this is back to what the Buddha was saying. When a person has pain, he said there's two aspects to that discomfort. And this was, for me, one of the key teachings to understand what pain is and how to deal with it. He said there's a mental part of the pain and also the physical part of the pain. It's the physical part you can't do much about, but the mental part you can do everything about. It's the mental part which is the most important. In fact, sometimes the mental attitude to the discomfort and pain in the body can be so effective that it can sometimes completely evaporate the pain, the physical pain. And I think that you all know stories of like people, sometimes they're playing soccer or they're playing rugby and they break their leg or they break their arm and they still carry on playing their game. And it's only afterwards they realize, oh my goodness, I've broken my leg. Or sometimes that we are in some other reading a book or something and sometimes we don't realize what has happened. There's been many occasions in my life when I just realized just the power of the mind and how the pain in the body is influenced enormously by the attitude of the mind. One of those experiences was when I was a student. And I got a terrible cold or flu, like many people have right now. Apparently there's a flu bug going around. And it was so bad I couldn't go to any lectures, and I was in the room of my little student's accommodation, feeling really terrible, not being able to get out of bed, no one to look after you, just tossing and turning, not being able to sleep, not being able to get up, feeling really awful, feeling, as I once called it, like a drained tea bag, just no oomph in it at all. just really soggy and bleh. And anyhow, as I was sitting in this house where I was sharing with a lot of other students, somebody rang the doorbell. I said, "Go away." And they kept on ringing it. "Get out of here." They kept on ringing it. I had no choice. I dragged myself out of bed. I crawled to the door and I opened it, feeling really grumpy. But it was a delivery man. He was delivering we used to call it a stereo system for my records, not a CD player, it's hi-fi, whatever you call it these days. Remember, I've been a monk for 32 years. I missed out a lot the last 32 years, but that's what I used to call it those days. And they were delivering it. And I thought, oh, wow, this is really nice. I can actually play some music now. And I took delivery, and I took it to my room, and I put it all together, because I had to connect it all. When I put my first disc on, and Jimi Hendrix, of course, I was really into that as a young man. And I put my first Hendrix record on, I just couldn't believe it. My flu had disappeared. I was perfectly healthy. Half an hour before, I wasn't imagining it. My eyes were streaming, I was coughing, my nose was dripping, and now it had completely vanished. It wasn't so much a miracle, because something there had changed the attitude to my mind. Now, I'm not suggesting that the next time you get a flu, go and put on a Jimi Hendrix record or whatever else you like. I don't think that was the most important part of the therapy. I don't expect any of you doctors to prescribe that on Medicare. But whatever it is, that there was a change of attitude there, which actually got rid of the fever, got rid of the symptoms, and you felt really better afterwards. It is the mind part of the pain which is the most important. And even when I was starting meditating, I feel really awful. You know when it's like when you've got a pain inside your guts, or you've got a pain in your head or in your arm or whatever? What do most people usually do? They usually screw their mind around that pain. They tense up. And I think every doctor would know that inflammations are all about the body overreacting. There must be some little cause inside, but all the muscles tense up and they squash that sort of area of trauma. And a lot of times all one needs to do is to develop the ability just to open up and to relax. And then the physical pain tends to get less and less and less. You find the more you fight that pain, the more negativity you give it. The more you say, "Get out of here, you don't belong," then the tighter that pain becomes. It becomes a ball, a hard energy, and that is what becomes intolerable. So that I've learnt as a Buddhist monk to go in opposite directions to one's normal tendencies. Whenever there's a pain, one always tends to want to run away. Whenever your finger meets a flame, almost automatically you draw away from it. If a mosquito bites you, you want to swat it, or you want to scratch an itch, or whatever it is, you've got these automatic tendencies which very often make the problem worse. And a lot of times, instead of running away from these pains, or these discomforts, or these difficulties, both physical and mental in your life, sometimes I've learned to go in the opposite direction, as if your mind just goes towards the pain instead of running away from it. It goes to befriend the feeling rather than make it an enemy. It gives it kindness rather than hate. It's just a general principle for all your life is to make peace, not war. Again, I used to be a bit of a hippie when I was listening to records like Jimi Hendrix in the 60s. And I too used to go around like all the others with my two fingers up. Make peace, not war. Make peace, not war. That was in the time of the Vietnam War. And I was a bit of a pacifist. I'm still a pacifist, but not so much towards wars, although that I won't agree with such things, but also to the war which you have with the realities of your life. The war which we have with pain, with sickness, and sometimes even with mental problems or with social problems. We make war with this. It shouldn't happen. It's not going to happen. I'm going to solve this. Get out of here, pain. Get out of here, divorce. Get out of here, too much stress. Get out of here, whatever else happens in life. And it's that negativity which actually feeds the pain. and makes it tighter and makes it worse. So there's another way. It's welcome pain. Thank you for being here. If I can't beat you, I can be your friend. So, okay, I'm going to enjoy you as my best friend, pain. And I learned this attitude from the time when I was a young monk in Thailand, because we had it tough with our master Ajahn Chah. He wouldn't tolerate namby-pamby cream puff monks. So there's no way I could be one like that. He just couldn't stand it, because in this first year in this forest monastery, this was jungle monastery, really hot, sweaty, and of course the worst thing was the mosquitoes. Now there are hundreds of them in these forests. Very often in the evening, we would sit meditation, not in the hall, but outside under the trees. And the time we'd sit meditation was just after sunset. It was as if we had this big sign, restaurant open, just when the mosquitoes were hungry. And it was very irritating, because those mosquitoes in Thailand, especially in Buddhist countries, are much different than any other country, because in those days the mosquitoes had been genetically bred to understand if they saw a brown robe and a bald head, it was a safe lunch. We would not swat them, other people would. So, it's just like evolution. Those ones who were attracted towards the brown robe, would have their meal, survive and procreate. Those people who went to, like a skirt or trousers, they'd get swatted, and so they wouldn't multiply so much. So you can understand just the law of evolution, how just it was inbred in these mosquitoes to be attracted to peaceful and harmless brown-robed monks. Not only that, we've got our jackets on now because it's the winter time. If you've seen monks in Thailand, or even here in the hot weather, we have these bare shoulders, and we have bald heads. There are so many more landing places for mosquitoes. It's like more seats at the table for dinner. And not only that, this is why we really suffered with these mosquitoes. I was one of the first Westerners in this area. This was the first time in centuries the mosquitoes could eat Western food. And I'm sure they all told their friends, hey, in that forest over there, you can eat Western food. You know what it's like when you get strange food in the country? It always becomes a fad for a while. So these mosquitoes, they were terrible. And this is not a joke. This is true. I remember this very clearly. There's another monk I used to sit next to him. His name was Jyotika. Actually, I saw his daughter some years ago, last November. And he actually disrobed, and the year after got married. A year after that was killed in a car crash. He just had a baby daughter called Metta. And of course, because I knew her father, I hadn't seen the baby. Now, 20-year-old girl. It was wonderful actually seeing her, because it was someone I grew up with as a monk. And anyhow, this Jyotika, we used to play this game. And we'd sit there for about an hour and a half with our master. We would count the mosquitoes on your arm. And I'd usually get to about 50 or 60 before you couldn't count them anymore. They were too close together. So, you couldn't actually resolve, whether there was one over here and one over there. And that was usually the number we used to get up to. Maybe 40, 50, 60. That was about the maximum. And you couldn't count anymore. Too many, too close together. That's not an exaggeration. That's how it was. So you can imagine when you're irritated with one mosquito. Imagine about 50 or 60 all at the same time. And every now and again you'd open your eyes and want to run. There's no repellent, no nets, no mosquito coils. You're just out there in the jungle with nothing to protect you. And when I decided to run, you'd see my master up there sitting. I didn't dare run away. And all these other Thai monks, they were just sitting there. They weren't bothered. I only found out afterwards, actually, the Thai monks, there's something about their metabolism was used to the hot weather. They didn't attract so many mosquitoes. They didn't get bitten so much. It was all our Westerners. We were the ones who got bitten all the time. So there you were. So when we complained to our teacher, so this is too much, can't we meditate another time? That was when he taught us about the meaning of this word Ajahn. Ajahn means teacher, like I'm Ajahn Brahm. You've got Ajahn Sister Wayama, means teacher. So he said, from now on, you've got a new teacher, not Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Mosquito. That's your new master. And what a brilliant little lesson that was, because we had to learn from Ajahn Mosquito. And you learn much more from such experiences than you do from reading books, going to universities, or even coming to places like this and listening to a talk for an hour. Here you're learning from real life about how to cope with some of the difficulties and pains of life. And you found actually the more you worried and tensed up about this, the worse it got. When you really relaxed and let go, the whole problem disappeared. I know that one thing which I used to do really taught me how to meditate properly. I really focused on my breath. You could not wander or think about other things, because as soon as the mind lost its focus, straight away it would go to your arm or your head, and these terrible itches. So after a while I learned how to get into these very deep meditations where you couldn't feel the body anymore. And you'd be so peaceful. Strange thing happened though, that when I came out of those meditations, I looked at my arms and the mosquitoes had been swarming. You couldn't see any bites at all, because usually after a bite you'd see a little red welt, or a bump or something. At least it would be red and inflamed. There was no bumps there at all. First of all, I thought it was just like the power of meditation. I know these things have great psychic power. They can do a lot to heal the body. But I only found out a few years ago what actually was happening was that mosquitoes are attracted to the carbon dioxide coming out from your pores, not the heat, from the carbon dioxide. The higher your metabolism, the more they know you're there. The more you worry, the more you tense up, the more you're upset about these mosquitoes biting you, you're actually saying, come over here, here I am. The more you relax and let go, the more your metabolism slows down, calms down, and they don't know you're there. So I calm my metabolism down so much just by relaxing, making peace, not worrying about anything, just focusing on my breath. I was invisible to the mosquitoes. They just couldn't see me, which is why they didn't bite. It was an amazing little lesson for me. It not only taught me how to meditate, but it also taught me some of the benefits of relaxing, even when you're in very irritating circumstances, when you're even in pain. Because as soon as you relax, the whole tightness tends to dissipate. Sometimes I've taught people, I've done it myself, whenever there is a ball of pain somewhere in your body. It could be anywhere in that body. Sometimes you can see yourself tightening up again around that pain. And instead I've used the meditation of visualization, of expanding that pain. Because expanding the pain is different than trying to get rid of it. Trying to get rid of it is giving it negative energy. I actually spread that pain around the whole of my body. Now that's actually going against the usual way you do things. You want to get rid of it. This time I spread it out throughout the whole of my body. It may be just in my stomach, spread it out to my limbs, to my legs, even up to my head. Because as that works, the simile which I developed was when you actually expand something, it gets less dense. Sure, the pain is actually spread over a wider area, but it's less full, less hurting. When it gets to my whole body, I keep on expanding it. And expanding and expanding it. It's like an ice cube at first. But when you actually expand it, it melts. When you expand it, it becomes like a cloud in the sky, soft and fluffy. You expand it into the whole universe. And it gets so thin, so spread out, it disappears. I found that a very effective way of overcoming the pain. Because it's not going against it. Is going with it. So these are little ways which I found of dealing with the pain. I know there is a way of like substitution, whereas If you're focusing on the breath and the pain is on the outside, it's what I call in meditation a simile of the screen. To understand this, and this is, I think, probably why, say, footballers, they may break their leg and not know what's going on because they're focusing on something else. The simile of the screen goes like this. Whenever you turn on a TV of an evening, you will always notice the edges of the screen. And you may have a picture, maybe of your wedding, on the top of your TV. And you may have a video or DVD machine underneath. But have you noticed yet that after a few minutes you cannot see the edges of your TV screen? You can't see what's to the left, to the right, above and below. You can't even see the edges of the screen. All you can see is the center. Now this is very useful for you to save you many thousands of dollars, because these days people buy these liquid crystal TV screens, these plasma screens, which are just so wide. And you should know that when you look at them, or when you look at a small screen, like a portable TV, in your mind, the image in your mind is exactly the same, no difference, once you start focusing. That's why when I'm on Singapore Airlines, you see these people in front of their little TV screens, looking at these movies. They might as well be looking at a big movie screen. The perception is exactly the same. So look, you don't need to spend all those thousands of dollars buying these huge screens. Just buy a small one, and it looks exactly the same once you get into it. You see, you come to this Buddhist society, we also save you thousands of dollars. That's psychology, and it is true. The next time you go on one of these aircraft and you see these little small screens, notice that. The perception, once you focus, is exactly the same as if you're in a movie theatre with this huge wide screen. You don't realise it's on a small screen or on a big screen once you focus. Because what happens, once you're focused on something, everything on the edge of the screen falls away, it disappears. If you're focusing on a movie, the picture above the TV screen, maybe the magazines underneath, whatever's to the side, all vanishes after a few moments. Understanding that, you can understand another way of overcoming some of the pain. If you can focus on another object and put that in the center of your awareness, of your consciousness, which is what I was doing with the breath, because I've been doing breath meditation for a long time. You put that right in the center. Sure, there's pain, but it's on the edges. You keep focusing and focusing and focusing, sustaining your attention. You don't know when it happens. You only know it had happened. The feeling of pain disappeared. So I think that's also what probably happened when I was focusing on the music of Jimi Hendrix. The feeling of pain and the difficulties of the body had actually disappeared. However, there is always some times when the pain is almost impossible to escape from. And I think everybody's experienced that from time to time. And if that's the case, then one just is with the pain rather than trying to escape from it. And of course, this is often with chronic pain. Chronic pain is something which just doesn't disappear easily. It's not like just a little cough or a headache or a little stomach ache. It's something which is there continuously, hour after hour after hour for a long time. And sometimes medication just does not work. So what actually happens is, if we understand what I said earlier about the two aspects of pain, the mental pain and the physical pain. The mental pain is like, I don't want this, get out of here, why do I have to experience this? Not only does that make it worse, it also increases the physical pain. But if you actually let go of that mental pain and just have the physical, it actually becomes incredibly easy to bear. Of all those two, the mental reaction to pain is 90% of the problem. The physical is only 10%. And so if we can learn to deal not with the physical, but the mental part of pain, then we're actually making huge strides in coping and being at peace and even enjoying life in spite of pain. So what we need to do there is focus on, what am I doing with this pain? What is my reaction? What's my attitude towards this physical feeling? A lot of time we think, I shouldn't be in pain. Why is it happening to me? It's another guilt trip. So because of that, I usually do a little exercise. When I have an audience, I ask them, how many people in this audience have never been sick? Is there anyone here who's never been sick in their life? Put your hand up if you have been. You've never been sick. So, can we assume that everybody has been sick from time to time? That you've been in pain? Actually, if someone did put their hand up, you'd be really weird. You'd be such a strange case. There'd be something wrong with you. So why is it that instead of facing the reality that it's actually wrong not to be sick from time to time, why is it whenever we are sick or we're in pain, why is it we've got into the habit in our culture of saying, there is something wrong with me, I'm sick? Now just that word there shows just our mental attitude towards pain, sickness and disease. We're already judging it as something bad, wrong, and sometimes even think it's our mistake. I always remember a book which I read as a student by Samuel Butler called Erewhon. Erewhon is actually nowhere spelt backwards. And in this book, which was written about maybe 100 years ago now, this Samuel Butler envisioned a society where when you break the law, when you commit a crime, you're sent to hospital for therapy, for rehabilitation. The criminal acts like stealing or violence were considered to be like a disease. There's something wrong and it could be cured by a doctor or by some sort of treatment. It's interesting, isn't it, that many people think that is actually possible. If there's any criminals, if they're cheating or embezzling or whatever, that it might be like a problem which we can treat with appropriate therapy. But in this society, when anybody was sick, they got punished and sent to jail. There's something to that, isn't there? If you get, say, cancer, is it because you haven't been exercising properly, eating the wrong food, stressing out, working too hard? Is it your fault? If you've got a bad back, is it because you haven't been lifting things properly? Now, if you've got a heart disease, is it because you've been eating too much fish and chips, too much McDonald's or whatever? Anyway, this is what they said. It was interesting. I'm not saying this is what I think. This is actually what this guy was actually positing, just as a way to see things in a different light. That sure, why is it we say that if you commit a crime, you're fully culpable, but when you're sick, there's no blame at all? So in this, I always remember this scene in the book where this poor guy was in court. The reason why he'd been charged and brought to the court for a trial was because he had the flu. And the judge looked at him and he said, it's very clear that you're guilty. You have got the flu. Look, you're snivelling and blowing your nose all the time. So it came to the sentence. And the judge remembered, this is not the first time you've been before me. And I told you last time you must exercise more and eat better food and don't have so much stress. And you never took the warning. And so he threw the book at this guy, 5 years in jail for a repeat offence of having a cold. Now, of course, that was just a little way of looking at different way of looking at things. But even now, yeah, people who get cancer feel guilty. If they have to go to a doctor, they feel they'd made a mistake. Why is it that we add guilt to the pain and diseases of life? It's a mental addition to just what's normal in life. Even if you eat brown rice and meditate every day and exercise and only eat veggies, people still get cancer. They still die. I remember just Before I was a monk, I used to be really into yoga. 34 years ago, I used to be really flexible. And the TV series at that time was like Yoga for Health, I think, from the United States. And I used to watch that every week because I had this guy who's just so young and fit, and this beautiful girl as well. Maybe the beautiful girl was why I was watching it, I don't know, but no, the boy as well. And because I was a layman then, I wasn't a monk. But anyhow, that I started doing all these poses, and after I became a monk, about a year later, I just asked the people, what happened to that program? Is it still going strong? Because I really liked that program. And somebody told me, yeah, it's strange. About 6 months after I became a monk, the guy had a heart attack on the set and just died. I couldn't believe that. This guy was so fit, so healthy, did all the right things. What it told me was that sickness, pain, is part of life, and you don't need to add this mental part of it of guilt that something is wrong, it shouldn't happen. So these days I tell people, if ever you have to go to the doctor, if you're coming here to this Buddhist Society of Western Australia many times on a Friday evening, please never go to the doctor and say, there's something wrong with me, doctor. I've got, pain, or I'm feeling sickly. Please tell your doctor, doctor, there's something right with me. I'm sick again. No, I mean that because, and actually somebody did that once. They told me that, because I said this before, they went to their doctor and they said, there's something right with me, I'm sick again. And I think they got referred to a psychiatrist. I really get people in trouble. But anyhow, you can understand what I'm saying here. That when you add this negativity to pain or to sickness, you make it worse. This negativity, it shouldn't be happening. Not only does it say it makes it worse, but sometimes it means you don't treat it in time. Too many people get lumps in their breasts or pain somewhere else. I think that's not cancer. It can't be cancer. I don't want it to be cancer. Another reason, because they're afraid. They think it's wrong to have cancer. It's wrong to be sick. And so sometimes by the time they get to the doctor, it's really late. So please, always think, it's right to be sick. It's right that some people get cancer. It's right that some people die. It's right you have pain from time to time. So don't think there's something wrong. Don't think there's some mistake. Don't think there's something which is really awfully bad about this. At least have that mental acceptance of this being part of life. Once you have that mental acceptance, it's part of life, then straight away you're facing it and you can deal with it when you're not running away. You ever notice when you run away, your face is always in the opposite direction? You can't see when you're running away what you're running away from. When you face the problem, at least you can see it. And once you can see these things, it's amazing what you can discover and how you can find ways of dealing and overcoming, transcending, being free. One of the ways of dealing with this is actually just using the basic beginning of meditation of present moment awareness. Because when you actually face pain, you see a lot of the problem with pain or difficulty is allowing the mind to be afraid for the future. What it is saying, I can't stand this any longer. You're standing it now, you're bearing it in this moment. But the point which makes pain unbearable is the thought this is going to continue for minutes, for hours, for days, for years. It's that expectation where the mind runs off into the future which makes the pain unbearable. Or the memory of pain in the past. It hurt in the past, it's going to hurt again. All of these moments when you allow yourself to judge this present moment by the past or anticipate the future, that is the mental part of pain, which makes it very, very difficult to bear. So instead of saying that, we learn how to be in the present moment with pain. And a classical story of that, which I did write in my book, was one of the fellows in my monastery, he had very bad teeth. Some of you know who he is, but he's not here at the moment. He's off overseas. That's a bit of a giveaway already. I shouldn't really tell who it is. But anyhow, he had bad teeth. I don't know what his disease was, but he got fed up. He had to have many teeth out. He got fed up with going to a doctor who would give him an anesthetic. He found one dentist, actually in the Perth Dental Hospital, just next to Royal Perth, who would actually take out his teeth without anesthetic. Now, not many dentists would do that, simply because they think that, you may say that, but you won't be able to, and just cause a lot of screaming, and that will scare off your other clients. Imagine you're in a waiting room about to go to the dentist, and someone's screaming, ah! But anyhow, this was a free clinic, so it didn't really matter about scaring off clients. So anyway, the dentist would do this, and it didn't really, this guy, it didn't really matter. He could do it easily. But one day, he went the next stage up. He went to the next level. He took his own tooth out. It was just too far to go all the way from Serpentine into town. So why not? And we saw him. He had his tooth covered with blood in the pliers from the workshop. Why are you screwing your face up like that? When you asked him what happened, how did you do that? And this is a classical story about pain. How can you do that? This is what he said. He said, when I decided to take out my own tooth, it didn't hurt then. When I walked to the workshop to get the pliers, walking didn't hurt. When I picked up the pliers in my hand, that didn't hurt. Even when I put the jaw of the pliers on my tooth, that didn't hurt either. For many of you, it's already hurting. He said, because when I wiggled it, that hurt for about 2 seconds and it was out. It's only 2 seconds. Easy. Now you understand, for you, it's the thought of what it might be like. That's what hurts, isn't it? So that's why you screwed up your face and, ugh, how could you do that? You can see you had the mental pain without no physical pain at all. Now you understand why the mental part of it is the most important. Taking out a tooth was just 2 seconds of pain, that's all. And actually that probably, 2 seconds of pain is probably much better than, 2 hours of the anaesthetic wearing off and you can hardly speak. So, isn't it logical and reasonable? You can actually save a lot of money that way. Dentists are very expensive these days. And anyway, just getting an appointment is just so hard. So if anyone wants any tooth extractions, I can give you the name of this person. You can come to our monastery. Very cheap. But it's actually the expectation when the mind goes off into the future. This is going to hurt. This is going to be tough. I'm not going to stand this. That is the mental part of the pain. So when you're actually in the present moment, you can bear this moment. And one of the interesting parts about physical pain is you don't know what's going to happen next. Many people, especially on meditation retreats, have had these amazing experiences when big pain just suddenly disappears. It's weird. The first time that happened to me was when I had this terrible toothache. This is my toothache story, also in my book. But no, this is actually how I understood just how powerful the mind can be. I had this terrible, massive toothache. Now, people might say that, pain, a toothache is not much, not bad. But pain is personal. You cannot compare your agony with somebody else's. And you know what it's like sometimes? You say it's hurting and people don't believe you. It's nothing. But sometimes you know how bad it is. And this was a huge pain for me, probably the worst pain I've ever had in my life. And as I was trying to bear with this pain, it was late in the evening in this jungle monastery. There's no telephones, no dentists for miles. There wasn't even any Panadol or aspirin. You were just meant to bear with any physical difficulty. So, as usual, what happens with pain? In the evening, it always gets worse. When everyone else has gone to bed, that's when pain really starts to show what it's capable of. You ever notice that at night time? That's when it really hurts. So by about 10, 11 o'clock, it was so bad, there's no way I could go to sleep. Even though I was very tired, I wanted to, but I just couldn't. So I decided to try and block out the pain by doing breath meditation. And I was very focused, but this time the pain was too big. Every time I focused on the breath for a few seconds, just this incredible pain would just kick down the door of my mind. Every barricade which I put up, it would just turn over like matchsticks. The pain was too strong. And after trying that for about half an hour and getting absolutely nowhere, the pain getting worse, I thought of another way, which was doing walking meditation. It's another method of meditation we use in the monasteries. I gave that up after about 5 minutes, because I wasn't walking meditation. I was running meditation. You may notice whenever you're in pain, you can't sit still. I think that's probably just before I came in here. Maybe Venerable Sumino, my attendant here, noticed me getting up and getting down from the seat over there. I couldn't sit still. I was hurting too much beforehand. So I was running meditation, so I stopped that. The next thing which I tried was doing some chanting. Some magical Buddhist chanting. Now this time I was only about 1 or 2 years as a monk. Just come from Cambridge University, theoretical physicist. I didn't believe in all this superstitious nonsense, chanting and stuff. That was just for, this is the lower class Buddhists, the really intellectual ones like me. We didn't believe in that superstitious nonsense. So I started chanting. When you're desperate, you believe anything. And so I was so desperate, I started chanting. I had to stop that after 5 minutes, not even less than 5 minutes, because I wasn't chanting. I was shouting at the top of my voice. I was afraid I'd wake everyone else up in the monastery. That's the other thing. When you're in agony, you can't even do anything softly, because you're desperate. And this was one of the great times in my life, which may happen to you as well. When you're in a corner, you can't go anywhere. You've tried everything you've known, every possibility. There's nothing more to do, but you can't stand this moment any longer. You can't stand the pain, it's too much, and there's nothing you can do. Those are great times in your life. Those are times of possible spiritual awakening. And that was one of the times when I remembered what I'd heard from teachers like Ajahn Chah, what everyone here has heard before. Let go. It's easy. When you have to. Sometimes we don't have to, so we can't. But there's sometimes in your life, your back's against the wall, you're facing a firing squad of pain. The only thing to do, let go. And my experience was, let go. I let go. Within 1 second, the pain had completely vanished. Like a miracle. No pain left at all, and instead this incredible peace. Even actually not just peace, bliss as well. It's a wonderful experience when you truly let go. It works immediately. 1 minute you had pain. Incredible pain. Next minute, nothing at all. And it was just such a wonderful experience. I just sat down and enjoyed it by meditating. About an hour, 2 hours, I don't know how long. No pain at all. Completely gone. And then I lay down to have a sort of rest, but no, very little rest. When you've got good meditation, you lay down, you don't really go to sleep. You're sort of mindful, you're just resting. I got up early for the morning meeting at 3 o'clock. That's in the morning. We hardly slept in those monasteries. And I just started meditating again. When I woke up, there was a dull ache in my mouth. Later on, I went to see the dentist to get sort of something done. But at that time, it was just so amazing. You could have this incredible pain one moment and gone the next. And the only trick was, stop fighting. Let it go. Leave it alone. Now, when I wrote this story in the book, I gave a little warning, because many people try that. They're in incredible pain, say, let go. Come on, let go. I'm telling you, let go. And it doesn't work. And so they come and complain to me. Ajahn Brahm, this is what you said, it doesn't work. You made it up, didn't you? I said, no, this is a true story. I don't lie. And so the trouble was, you weren't letting go. This was just another technique of trying to get rid of the pain. That's not letting go. That's another management technique, another way of controlling. To really let go of pain, you have to say something like, pain, you can be in here forever. And mean it. You can even get worse if you want to. The door of my heart is completely open to you, no matter what you ever do. You can come, you can stay, you can get worse. I welcome you. That's a hard thing to do. It takes a lot of courage. Even compassion. Compassion to pain. To realize it's part of the scheme of things. It's part of life. There's nothing wrong with it. So why discriminate against the pain and say, I don't want you? When you allow it to be and let it be and allow it to come and stay, that's when it goes. It was the mental part of the pain which I truly let go of. Now, I don't want this. I can't stand this. Why me? This is unfair. I want to go home to England where I can go and see a dentist. All those sorts of things. The complaining, moaning, negative mind, that is what I let go of. Because of that, the mind was free. And the body just really relaxed and the pain disappeared. Fascinating, amazing experience. And of course, once you do that once, it's very easy to understand how you deal with pain when you've got no other choice. You've got a pain somewhere. Instead of fighting it, which means you tense up against it, you give it more negative energy, you let it be. You're friendly towards the pain. You're kind towards it. Give it metta, compassion, loving kindness. It's incredible just the effect that will have if you do it properly. Has to be 100%, 99.9% does not work. So it's the mental part which is the worst. And of course, there has to come a time in everybody's life when you have a pain which is going to kill you. Your death. For most of you, there'll be a very unpleasant time. So if you learn how to deal with pain now, then you're sweet when you die. You can be there in great pain and smiling and enjoying life, your last moments with your loved ones. I've seen that many times. People especially who've meditated, who know a little bit of Dhamma, a little bit of the truth, and how their mind and body works together. They should have been in great agony. Sometimes the doctors can't understand what's going on. But there they are, at peace with the last moments of life. It's beautiful to see that. It's inspiring. It shows what can be done. But of course I can't help but quoting one of my heroes in history. This is not even a Buddhist. This is a Catholic saint called St. Lawrence. The reason I like this guy was because he was so radical. He was just so much, he didn't sort of follow the usual dogmas. What happened to people like that in those days? They usually ended up tied to a post with a fire underneath them. I'm very happy that I'm not alive in those days. The sort of things I say here on a Friday night, I'm sure I'd have been had that treatment a long time ago. But anyhow, there was this great Christian saint being burned alive on a stake. Now, you may not have had that amount of pain and torture, but, you know, you've burnt your finger sometimes. You know how that feels, how painful that is? Now multiply that and imagine that you're tied to a stake being burnt alive. How would that hurt? But this guy, he had his act together. He was charred and blistered just before he lost consciousness. Before he could speak, he uttered his last words. His last words to humanity were these. It was in Latin, but it translates as, being burnt at the stake, he said, "Turn me over, this side's done." Like a piece of toast. Like a sausage being barbecued on a Sunday afternoon. Like, a prawn being grilled. "Turn me over, this side's done." That's what he said at last. Wow, I can really admire someone like that. Not only was he completely beyond the physical pain, but he also had compassion. For all those miserable people watching him, he decided to tell them a joke to cheer them up. No, the reason I say it can be done. It has been done. You've seen it done. How can it be done? Nothing I told you why. The mental part of it, that's the big part. It's a tough one, but we can learn. It's not only the tough part of it. If you really relax the body, the other part of meditation, which I wanted to say about dealing with pain, when you really relax, because you don't tense up, whether it's the chi or in Indian medicine, the winds of the body, they have a chance to flow freely and heal any sicknesses. I know that from my understanding of the ancient Buddhist sutras, especially the Vinaya, which is the rules of discipline, you can, because I know this in Pali, I've read it many times, and the way the Buddha described physical ailments or the physical health, he said like the winds flow through the body, and when they get blocked, it gets sicknesses. That's classical Indian medicine. And I remember reading an article, I think the Dalai Lama's personal doctor was invited to a hospital ward in the United States, and actually they took off all the signs. He didn't know these patients, what they were there for, and they just wanted to see whether this ancient Tibetan medicine, now based on Indian medicine, could actually give very good diagnosis of people's ailments. And he went up to this one guy. I can remember reading about this. It's really great fun reading about how ancient medicine and modern medicine, when they come together. And I think he sort of felt a few pulses, and he said he's got a blockage of winds around his heart. Of course, he had the arteries were all blocked. He was about to have a bypass in those days. In other words, he actually had an accurate diagnosis, but just explained it in different words. Just the flows of energy weren't flowing properly. Fascinating just how accurate you could be. But obviously in Chinese medicine, they call it qi going through the body. And you know that those things get blocked up and you get pain, or if you do get a sickness or an injury, like a bit of food poisoning, the reason it doesn't heal itself up very quickly is you block up more channels, you tense up. You're not relaxed with the pains of life. And that means the body's natural healing process can't work. And I've seen this in meditation many, many times. And even in my retreats, you tell people to really, really, really relax. To meditate, not doing this forceful meditation, very soft and opening the door of your heart meditation type things. And actually people start to feel these hot spots in their body. It's fascinating when this happens, because they come up to me afterwards and say, I was meditating, they're really peaceful, but my back became really hot. What's going on? I remember this one time, a couple of years ago, this lady said just that, my back and shoulders, they were really almost burning. What the heck is going on? Is this normal? Of course, my first question was, have you had any physical problems in your back and shoulders? And she said, laugh. Ajahn Brahm, you're reading my mind. How did you know I had an accident 2 years ago? I said, I'm not reading your mind. You just told me. Because that's what happens. She had this accident a couple of years ago with her back and shoulders. Obviously, something was needing to be healed there. She hadn't relaxed enough to give the body a chance to heal itself. Now she was relaxed. And body energies went to that area. And it got nice and warm. How did it actually feel? Was it unpleasant? No, it was very, very nice. It felt really nice afterwards. So that's healing going on. When you really let go, the pain, the difficulties tend to soften up, and evaporate. Or this other guy who came to one of my retreats in Sydney, and people started complaining about him because whenever he was doing breath meditation, he was going all the time. And of course, that really disturbed him. It made a huge noise. And so when I got these complaints, I had to make the announcement. This fellow has got nasal cancer, terminal, he's got no hope. This is his last chance. There's no treatment, no more treatments possible. And as soon as I said that, no one ever complained at all about that's all he could do. But on the last day of this retreat, this fellow came up to me just at the very end and said, wow, amazing thing happened. He was meditating there, really relaxed. He said he heard this pop in his nose. And the first time in weeks, he could actually breathe through his nose. But then after a few minutes, it closed up again. He says, amazing. Don't know how that happened. And that's the last I saw him. I thought he would have died. But a few years later, I was giving a talk in Sydney, and this guy came up to me and said, do you remember me? Who are you? I said, I was that guy. Full remission, and now he's spending his time teaching meditation. It's amazing just what can happen. And how can that happen? Because when you really, really relax, the energy of the body can actually do some proper healing. Not only healing, but actually heal the pain in the body, to relax it all. Incredible. I'm not joking. When I started this talk, I had this huge ball of pain in my stomach. It's hardly there now. I can hardly feel it. It's just about gone. It's amazing how you can deal with pain if you have this beautiful attitude, not worrying about the past, in the moment, just being here, not fighting, stopping the mental part. And if you do address the mental part of the pain, then 99% is going to disappear. And sometimes the 100% goes as well. So that's a talk about how to deal with pain, and sometimes chronic pain. And the same thing goes with pain in life. Divorces, separations, it's the mental part. Everyone, not everyone, it doesn't happen to me, I've never got divorced. But that's because I never got married. But it happens. And so don't get guilty about it. Make peace with it, not war. If you can't do anything, well, they're stuck with it. It's the mental part which is the worst part. Or you get sacked from work, or somebody dies in your family, or someone commits suicide, whatever it is. Sometimes this happens. But the mental part, please look at the mental part of what you have to experience in life. And if you can deal with that, everything else comes good. So thanks for listening to Pain. Okay, any questions now about pain? About anything I said, or something similar? No, for a second. You got a question for me? Very good. Any questions? Going. For those people in chronic pain, if you can please see the receptionist to get your Medicare bill. We bulk bill. We bulk bill. No, it's okay. All for free.